The Files joins us now. Congressman Ro Khanna of California, a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Khanna, as always, thank you very much for coming to the weekend. Before we get into specifically Epstein and the files and DOJ, let's talk about the announcement last night of your homegirl, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was a partner with you and Congressman Massey in getting that discharge petition through the House, through the Senate, and getting the president's signature.
It's sad to see the retaliation on her. I mean, she was an original Donald Trump supporter. She was there for Donald Trump since 2015 when Trump was at a few percent in the polls. And simply because she signed the discharge petition, because she advocated for survivors, there's no room for her in Donald Trump's party. And it shows that the Republican Party really is not a Big Ten party.
Trump just spoke to NBC News and said that if she has a future in the party, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for her, but I'd love to see that. I would like to see it. So that's an update we just got 10 seconds ago from NBC News interviewing her. Congressman, I want to play something that Mary McCord said on our show last Saturday, because I've heard it parroted over and over this week, and I think you probably have a lot of insight. So I want to play the Mary McCord side.
I wanted to say one more thing about this directing his attorney general to open an investigation. If Jay Clayton does open that investigation, and she said that he would, and he's going to do it urgently, notwithstanding 4 months ago her saying there's no third parties to investigate, that could have the effect of them saying we can't disclose these documents pursuant to a congressional subpoena because we have an open criminal investigation. Yeah. So this whole thing, to my mind, is a tactic to prevent the release of those documents.
Congressman Khanna, a lot of people, a lot of lawyers have weighed in since last Saturday saying that they see that as, the same as Mary does. Do you have that concern? And if you do have that concern, what are you and the oversight Democrats willing to do about it?
I do have that concern, but the Epstein file is a huge file. So what we're talking about is restricting some documents, a few percent of those documents. They still need to release the rest of them. Secondly, the law says that the documents that they can withhold can only be done on a very temporary basis, and they have to have a narrow exception that they explain. And if they don't, they're violating federal law. By the way, this is not just Pam Bondi. Any Justice Department official who's doing that is violating federal law, and when we have a Democratic president, they would be prosecuted for doing that. So they are really playing with fire if they tamper with it. But I and Thomas Massey will be seeking a meeting with Pam Bondi to understand fully how they intend to comply with the law and to have a plan of what they're going to do in the next 30 days to release those documents.
Congressman, my reading of the loopholes in the bill has been decidedly less optimistic than what you're saying right now. I want to pull up a list of the ways that this White House has so far obfuscated and tried to stonewall releasing the files, starting in February 21st of this year, where Bondi says the client list is sitting on my desk. All of these different ways, as our viewers can see, to trying to prevent these files from coming out, to now Trump being essentially forced to signing a bill to release the files. It does feel like these loopholes give the Attorney General a lot of discretion over what can be released. And even if the DOJ ultimately cherry picks a few documents in what is a huge trove of documents, doesn't that still leave a lot of questions for something that has already up until now felt extremely questionable and conspiratorial and has just raised more and more questions as we've gone along in this process?
Well, I agree with you. We can't trust them at all. And what the American people want to know is who are the other rich and powerful men who abused young girls? Who are the other rich and powerful men who raped these women on Epstein's Island? That's what the American people want to know. And we know that there are other names. How do I know that? Because I've talked to the survivors. I've talked to their lawyers. They know that some of these names are in the file. They want them to come out. A lot of those names could come out regardless of this investigation issue. But here are the two reasons why I believe that the bill is going to put momentum to get the release. First, you've had Donald Trump basically totally cave. I mean, he signed a Democratic bill, my bill, even though he threatened for 5 months not to sign anything, and you had an almost unanimous vote in the House and a unanimous vote in the Senate. Donald Trump understands that this story going on and on and on is terrible politics for him. And if he wants to continue to drag on the fight, his numbers are going to continue to go down. And the second thing is now anyone who's involved in any kind of cover-up is going to be subject to criminal prosecution. Before this law, it was just, okay, you're violating a Donald Trump campaign promise. Now you're subject to contempt of Congress and criminal prosecution. That may not happen under the Trump administration or under Speaker Johnson, but it certainly will happen when we have Chairman Garcia and a Democratic president.
But then, Congressman, are you and the rest of the committee and committee leadership, including Republicans and Democrats, prepared to hold Attorney General Pam Bondi or her deputy in contempt of Congress if they don't turn over these materials?
We are, but look, there are a lot of attorney generals who've been held in contempt, and that it doesn't always force the issue. I think the bigger issue is not just Pam Bondi. It's every person who works at the Justice Department and FBI who's involved in these files.
This committee, I asked him a simple question. Will you abide by a decision of the United States Supreme Court? He refused to commit to doing so. And that is so dangerous. It puts our service members in a terrible situation. This is where the concern comes from. So any person of good faith who looks at this has got to say there is a legitimate concern here. And that's why restating the law, restating our commitment to the Constitution, having clarity about that is more important now than ever.
Congresswoman, I want to move a little bit away to a tangential part of this, which is Venezuela, right? Recently, and this is from Washington Post from November 11th, the U.S. troops not liable in boat strikes. This is from a classified Justice Department memo. It reads, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel stated in a classified opinion, personnel taking part in military strikes in America would not be exposed to future prosecution, according to 4 people familiar with the matter. One, I don't think that they can stop them from being open to future prosecution, so that's one. But two, you wouldn't have to do this if there wasn't at least a question about what you all said in that video, which is that the President of the United States, in your estimation, in court's estimation, that there is some possible illegal orders that are being given at the end of the day. They wouldn't have to release something like that if they didn't even think that there was a perception of something like that being a problem.
Look, I think the core idea here is something that we should all be able to get behind, which is we want a system of checks and balances in this country. When you mention Venezuela, what we've seen so far this year is a president who doesn't want to come to Congress for anything. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to come to Congress to get authorization for the use of military force, which there are good reasons why the Constitution gives Congress this responsibility. It may be inconvenient. It may be less efficient.
Slower. It's supposed to be.
And that is exactly what it is supposed to be, a system of checks and balances. And this is my core concern.
Congressman, I want to ask you one more quick question to go full circle to where we started, which is what you said, that being against political violence should be a simple enough mantra, policy. Why isn't it for this president? I mean, what does it say about society, about this president, that it's not a simple enough thing that this president can abide by?
And that he actually doubles down on the opposite over and over.
Look, it is wrong, it is dangerous, and sometimes it feels like a distraction from what is real. And what I can tell you about the people who I represent, people in New Hampshire are hurting, people across this country are hurting. I came to Congress because I want to solve real issues, and the core issue right now is affordability. We've got a healthcare crisis that in our country that this president has brought about and exacerbated through the worst piece of legislation to be signed into law in our lifetimes, perhaps in American history, in H.R. 1. And I think the distraction from the core issues and the invocation of threats, they just have no place in this country.
One thing you need to realize about Trump is that he acts the most unhinged when his back's against the wall. Like, he ironic as it is, when he feels like he's in a good place, it's when Trump is his least evil. It's when he's his most conciliatory. It's when he's most willing to give other people compliments. It's when he's most willing to act like something approaching a normal president. But when he's under pressure is when he is revealed. Pressure reveals character. And with Trump, that's the case, that pressure reveals his lack of character. And so, at this moment, as Republicans are rejecting him, they're rejecting his policies, they're rejecting his approach to the Epstein files, right? This is a big moment, and so he's lashing out. And he's lashing out against both parties. We saw it. He lashed out against Green and Massey and others. And he also lashed out now against, a half dozen Democrats, effectively putting a sword over their head, saying, I need to bring the sword down upon their head. Right? And this is all because he's losing right now. Because Congress rejected his approach. Remember, the Trump approach was, we're going to have a shutdown, and that's going to bury the Epstein stuff. And then Congress rejected that outright. They rejected his approach to that bill, which was to kill it, and they rejected that. And so now he's desperate, because now he knows he doesn't have control. When Trump doesn't have control, that's when he lashes out. And remember, Donald Trump was always insane, but he went to another level after he lost in 2020, right? We remember that from November 2020 till January 6 and beyond, Trump was at his worst. He got worse than he was before. That Donald Trump is worse now than he was a couple months ago because he's lost control of his own party. And he doesn't have that ability to rule with an iron fist that he thought he had. So, this is when Trump is at his most dangerous. When he is a man who's losing and feels he has nothing to lose.